call toll-free 1-800-874-3100. That's toll-free 1-800-874-3100.
This is CNN.
This is CNN Breaking News.
I'm Bobbie Battista in Atlanta. We take you now to Oakland, California, where the mayor of that besieged city is speaking with reporters at this time about the ravaging brush fires that have been just tearing through the hills above Oakland and Berkeley, California in the last 24 hours. The mayor and the governor have both completed a fly-around of the devastated area. The governor is expected to appear momentarily. Let's listen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the mayor has told you, we made several passes in a National Guard helicopter. There is fog that has come in to somewhat complicate some of the airdrops, but you could see terrible devastation. What showed up last night as burning hot spots in that black of night this morning were clearly the charred ruins of hundreds of homes. The Hiller Highlands area in particular looked as though it had been just shaved. So there's been terrible devastation, but let me echo the mayor. I think there's been an extraordinary effort made on the part of the firefighters, the police, all of the support people at the centers to which the evacuees were taken. There has been extraordinary coordination. Last night we checked to see whether or not there were additional resources that could be deployed. From all that I can see, there has been a tremendous effort on the ground. All that could be done from the air has been done, seemingly because of the limitations of airspace. There are 20 helicopters, 10 fixed-wing tankers. It appeared this morning that although there were some hot spots, it looked as though it was pretty well contained. I don't want to raise any false expectations, and you should rely on the expertise of the fire department in that regard, and obviously we're hoping the winds stay down. But I would simply comment that there has been an extraordinary job done. What happens now by way of recovery, we intend will involve the federal government as well. Yesterday, after speaking to the mayor and to Assemblywoman Lee, before getting on the helicopter to come down here, I signed a declaration that declared the area a disaster area and made available all the appropriate state agencies. Through the night, we've been in contact with the federal government. When I get back to Alameda Naval Air Station, I'm going to try to speak directly to the president, and I'm going to ask that he declare Alameda County a federal disaster area and make it eligible for relief through the Federal Emergency Management Administration and through all of the recovery programs administered by the Small Business Administration and by FEMA.
Thank you. Congressman Dellums? There's nothing I can add to that except that all of you have the communication that we sent early this morning to the White House. We've also been in direct communication with Mr. Fred McClure, who is the legislative liaison to the Congress in the White House. He indicated that he was in the process of processing our request immediately. But the governor's phone call to the White House, I think, is what will trigger this, and I feel to a moral certainty that the president will act expeditiously.
Assemblyman Bates has obviously been involved in this in particular because most of the area that is covered by the fire is within his assembly district. And Tom?
Well, the only thing I want to make is a comment that we've seen Herculean efforts on the part of the people who've been combating this fire. And as the governor indicated, we don't want to be overly optimistic, but at this moment in time, barring any major wind changes and increase in wind, it looks like the fire may in fact be contained. So that's really good news. The question for us now is also to realize that the job really begins again for us in this area. Another disaster, another problem for people. Literally hundreds of people will have difficulty getting back in their homes. And I just want to pledge myself, and I know everybody here, to work with people who are out there who have problems. We want them to come forward. We want to help them to the extent possible by getting this federal declaration and getting a state declaration. we intend to utilize every resource that's available to us to assist these people. So we feel that people have pulled together in this crisis. It's not over yet, but let's hope that we've seen the turning point and we can actually move on to rise from these ashes and rebuild our community once again.
Assemblywoman Barbara Lee has been involved in this since early yesterday afternoon, staying up all night, working with us, and was on the phone to the governor with me early yesterday afternoon. Barbara?
I think what we saw this morning is probably the worst.
California political officials discussing the devastation from the brush fires in the Oakland, California area today. We are standing by to take you live to Independence, or rather to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where we expect former California Governor Jerry Brown to announce his Democratic candidacy for the presidency. We'll be back. Stay with us.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Hello, you. Oh, how about dinner at our house? What's wrong? Headache. I can imagine. Oh, I've got what you need. Motrin IB. Works great on headaches. My doctor said it's the same medicine as in prescription Motrin, but in non-prescription strength. One Motrin IB works as well as 2 regular Tylenol. Here.
Oh, no.
Don't look. Just keep this. Sounds like they'll need it, too.
Motrin IB, recommended by thousands of doctors.
And your neighbor.
These people never thought of themselves as high-pressure salespeople. They've always been committed to service. That's why they've become successful Better Homes and Gardens real estate agents, and why they use our proven real estate marketing systems to serve their customers better than anybody. After all, we've found that once you place service above everything, everything else falls into place. For information about a career in real estate, call 1-800-ADVANCE or your local Better Homes and Gardens real estate firm.
From the day I was born, I collected so much stuff. So we stored our stuff in stuff from Rubbermaid. Then we were so unstuffed.
Hey! We need more stuff!
Don't you wish everything was made like Rubbermaid? I crave snacks, but sometimes those calories have to be tabled. No problem. I've got Wrigley's Spearmint Gum. The great taste I love and only 10 little calories. Instead of munching, I enjoy pure chewing satisfaction.
There's good news for those of you who've been staying up late to watch the late news. Headline News has the latest news, business, and sports around the clock.
A reminder once again that former California Governor Jerry Brown is standing by to announce his candidacy for the presidency of the United States, and we will carry his remarks and some analysis live as soon as that happens. And while we're waiting for Governor Brown, another story breaking at this hour is that the White House is looking at several options to help spur economic recovery. One of those might be a reduction in taxes. So let's go to CNN's Charles Bierbauer standing by at the White House now for a further look at that story. Charles?
Well, White House spokesman Marlin Fitzwater this morning issued the magic words tax cut, but they may be more mystical than magical. Let me put this in a little bit of perspective. Of course, the White House and Congress, too, are looking for ways to spur the economy. What the White House spokesman this morning said was they're looking at the possibility of a middle-income tax cut as part of a growth package for the economy. But there's no more meat on the bones than that element itself. Last week, President Bush met with members of Congress, Republican members of Congress, to discuss the possible elements of a growth package. And when the members of Congress came out afterwards, they said they thought they'd have the package ready to propose this week. Spokesman Fitzwater says this week may be in the ballpark, but it is a big ballpark. The caution here is this is not yet anything that is definitive, but there are a lot of ideas being kicked around by both sides in Washington, at the White House, on Capitol Hill, by Republicans, by Democrats. Democratic Senator Lloyd Bentsen of Texas has the most definitive plan out there at the moment, one in which he proposes something in the neighborhood of $70 billion worth of tax cuts through IRAs and some other things that he has suggested, a tax credit for children, a number of things like that. The Republican package being put forth by Senators Graham and Kasten also gets into some degree in the question of IRAs that might be used for first-time home buyers. But at this point, frankly, we're sort of in the early stages of what could turn out to be a bidding war, too. let's not forget that this is a political year. Lastly, the Congress and the White House last year put together a budget agreement by which both sides agreed to hold to a budget plan limiting deficits over 5 years. If you're going to start giving out tax cuts, you've got to find other ways to make up for the spending needs on the other side of the equation. The White House insists that it does not want to break into that budget agreement, so it's all very complex, and this may be just a very, very early stage of the game. Charles Beerbaugh, CNN, live at the White House.
All right, Charles, thank you. And another story that could be breaking from overseas at any time. The Syrian foreign minister tells the Reuters news service that U.S. hostage Jesse Turner should be free in a matter of hours. Earlier today, the Shiite extremists claiming to hold Turner released a promising statement along with this picture of him. The group, the Islamic Jihad for the Liberation of Palestine, claimed they would free a U.S. hostage within 24 hours if Israel released a group of Arab prisoners. But the statement did not name the hostage that would be released. Well, hours later, Israel freed 15 prisoners being held in South Lebanon. Turner was kidnapped 4.5 years ago while teaching at Beirut University College. The group also claims to be holding Alan Steen, a communications professor at the university who was kidnapped at the same time. Relatives of the two men say they are not letting their hopes get too high.
Every time it happens, some movement like this, I feel hopeful. And this time also, I feel hopeful. But who knows what will happen, because every time they release picture of a Johnny and they release other ones.
No, they've played tricks like this before. They keep pointing at different people and release somebody else, and it's happened to my brother several times. So if it's, a twist of fate that they're pointing Jesse Turner and it turns out to be Alan Steen, well, that's great. That's wonderful. But if it isn't and Turner leaves instead of Alan, or maybe even both of them, that would be even wonderful. We'll just have to wait and see.
The other U.S. hostages still in captivity include Terry Anderson, Thomas Sutherland, and Joseph Sicipio. We will, of course, keep you updated on this story as developments warrant. And we will take you to Philadelphia momentarily for the announcement of Jerry Brown that he will run for the presidency. In the meantime, in medical news, thousands of babies die each year, victims of sudden infant death syndrome. An Australian medical journal reports today the cause may be a primitive reflex that causes babies to stop breathing when they're underwater. A researcher says a sleeping baby may stop breathing because it can't tell the difference between fabric and water. Researchers in the United States also are continuing to search for conclusive evidence for the cause of SIDS. CNN's Jeff Levine reports a new computerized device may aid their efforts.
It's a diagnosis that every parent of a baby at risk for SIDS wants to hear.
Oh, that's good breathing.
And the Cahill family endured a lot of anxiety before doctors could tell them that the worst was over. B.J. Cahill says it was more nerve-wracking than anything she faced in 8 years as a police officer.
Put a gun to my head and I can stand there and take it. Tell me my baby's heart's going to stop and I die.
Cahill gave birth to twins, Travis and Shelby, who were 12 weeks premature and had breathing problems. That put the babies at risk of contracting SIDS, or sudden infant death syndrome, a condition in which the child suddenly stops breathing and dies. No one knows what triggers the fatal attacks, which may or may not follow interruptions in breathing, and susceptible children have to be watched for months after they leave the hospital. In many cases, the only thing standing between these babies and death is probably this. A monitor signifies a caregiver or parent that the baby's breathing has stopped.
Your own heart stops when it goes off. You have to run in and hope that they're still there.
Doctors have long believed SIDS was primarily a failure to breathe. Now it appears to be linked to something else.
A baby who's dying of SIDS or other forms of sudden and unexpected death in infancy first drops his or her heart rate, and only after that's down for a minute or so does the baby stop breathing.
The surprising finding comes courtesy a new type of monitoring device. In addition to sounding an alarm, it contains a small computer that stores data on heart rate and breathing for up to a month.
I think the $64 question now is, what causes a low heart rate?
About 5,000 to 6,000 children die from SIDS annually. Each year, 50,000 infants are placed on home monitors. And the Cahills are convinced the machine saved Shelby's life once in the doctor's office.
She got very quiet, and then all of a sudden, she just went completely limp. And the monitor went off, and if the monitor hadn't gone off, you might have figured she'd just gone to sleep.
Doctors estimate that up to 30% of newborns are at risk of getting SIDS. Among those most in jeopardy, siblings of children who have died of this mysterious syndrome. Jeff Levine, CNN, Washington.
News for Medicine is brought to you by Bristol-Myers Squibb Company, makers of new day-night contracts. Finally, day and night cold medicines together in one package.
Hey, I thought you were home with a miserable cold.
I was, but now I feel better.
Well, did you take Sudafed for your stuffy nose?
No, I took Comtrax. It does it all.
Chlortrimeton for your sneezing.
I only took Comtrax.
Regular Tylenol for your aches and pains? Benylin DM for your cough.
All I took was Comtrax.
She'd have had to take each of these just to get all the relief that's in 2 Comtrax. Comtrax does it all. Also, look for new non-drowsy Comtrax.
Tonight, talk show king Phil Donahue. He's doing a new show with Soviet journalist Vladimir Posner. Meet them both, plus actress Linda Carter. All tonight on Larry King Live, 9 Eastern on CNN.
If all dogs were just puppies, all we'd make is puppy chow, with more nutrition than most adult dog foods for a healthy start. But dogs are different. That's why we make puppy chow, dog chow, fit and trim, and Purina High Pro. Pet tested, veterinarian recommended.
Dentists tell you to change your toothbrush every 3 months. So does the new Oral-B indicator. When the blue band fades halfway, it's time for a new brush. The new indicator from Oral-B, the brand more dentists use.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Well, former California Governor Jerry Brown is about to announce his 3rd campaign for the presidency of the United States. Brown says that he is choosing as his location today Independence Hall in Philadelphia in honor of Thomas Jefferson, the founder of the Democratic Party. Brown says his vision for the party is the restoration of its original spirit and theme as expressed by Jefferson, an anti-incumbent, anti-elite message to re-empower the working people. Political analysts Jack Germond and David Broder are with us, of course, this hour to provide some political analysis on Jerry Brown's speech and his campaign. And they are with us now, I believe, from Washington.
I learned.
Okay, gentlemen, if you could, this, as we know, will be Jerry Brown's 3rd effort at the presidency, and we just mentioned he's running on a anti-incumbent party, or still really as an reformer, but it's still kind of a reformer, but it still kind of makes him an outsider from either political party. What direction do you think he is running in?
Well, he's clearly trying to seize the moment, which has been his history. And the moment in this case being that there's an awful lot of anger about incumbency, an awful lot of anger directed at politicians, and Jerry Brown is going to claim that he's not a politician. And I think tying yourself to Thomas Jefferson sounds pretty good. I'm not sure it's something you could sustain a candidacy on.
Bobbie, I've just read quickly through the prepared text of his announcement speech, and what strikes me is that you come to the last page and it sounds as if it were a declaration of a third party or an independent candidacy rather than a try for the Democratic nomination. He is making the argument that both parties are so thoroughly corrupted today that the citizens need to clean the house. It strikes me as being a better premise for running as an independent than perhaps for the Democratic presidential nomination.
Jerry Brown is by far, I think, the most recognizable of all the major Democratic candidates, but he's been out of public office since 1983. Will that hurt him or help him?
Well, he does have more recognition than the others, but it's not all favorable either. And the fact is that Brown is sort of trying to reinvent himself again, Bobbie. He was governor a couple of terms. He ran for the Senate unsuccessfully. He's run twice for president. He was the state party chairman. Now he says he's against politics. He's trying to present a new Jerry Brown, a new and fresh Jerry Brown. it's impossible for him to throw off his history. And I don't think he's credible.
Jack and I sound like what we are, which is two overage and probably overly skeptical, even cynical Washington insiders. And I think we ought to acknowledge that there is an enormous amount of anti-politician, throw the bums out kind of sentiment out there in America for somebody to exploit. Whether Jerry Brown can make himself the vehicle for that sentiment remains to be seen.
Gentlemen, we'll be back with you momentarily. We should mention that at this time, former actor and politician himself, Ralph Waite, is making the introductory remarks at Independence Hall in Philadelphia, and we are waiting for former Governor Brown to come out and make his announcement speech, and we'll bring you that right after this break. Stay with us.
This is CNN Breaking News.
One car inspired many copies. Now that one car has been redesigned to be even more comfortable, to look even sleeker. You'll fall in love with it all over again. Introducing the redesigned Sable. All this and the quality of a Mercury.
I don't want to marry him, Mom. Just date him. My head. He'll get a job. Where's my Anison?
For splitting headaches, Anison works better than regular Bayer or Bufferin. So take Anison for splitting headaches.
You're going to love his earring.
News,
debate,
sports, weather,
advice,
pros,
cons, fashion,
talk, finance,
showbiz,
tantalizing cuisine. CNN, we're the news you need and much more.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Back to Independence Hall in Philadelphia now, where Jerry Brown is announcing his candidacy for presidency. We should mention that Brown will be the 6th major Democratic candidate to join the 92 presidential race. The others include Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton, Virginia Governor Douglas Wilder, Senator Bob Kerrey of Nebraska, Senator Tom Harkin of Iowa, and former Senator Paul Zongas of Massachusetts. Let's listen.
I've come here today because I care about my country, and I care about its future. And I care about the future of this earth on which we all depend. I love being an American, and I love the creativity and the freedom that it gives. I love the things which our democracy stands for, the ideals and the truths that were worked out just a few feet away. These ideas have power, and they're stirring the human imagination in Eastern Europe, in Burma, and to the farthest reaches of Asia. In that spirit, I'm here in Philadelphia to stand as a candidate for the President of the United States. I'm here today to make a commitment to each of you that I tend to keep and honor. I will work with all my energy, and I will do whatever is necessary to bring about real change. This candidacy is not simply about me, it's about us. It's about you and all of you. Because we Americans confront a great crisis. The swelling tide of decline looming on the horizon constitutes a threat to America as deadly as any faced by our forebears. And we've only begun to reap the whirlwind of decline. And without decisive action on a large scale, of a nature totally unacknowledged in the current political debate, that decline is going to accelerate. Our founders' greatest fear was the danger posed by the merger of economic and political power. Indeed, when 200 years ago Thomas Jefferson started the Democratic Party, he proclaimed its purpose thus: we must put it out of the power of the few to riot on the labors of the many. And the calamity which our fathers feared most has in our time come to pass, an unholy alliance of private greed and corrupt politics. Our deteriorating economy, our collapsing political process, and our eroding system of values are the direct consequences of a few allowed to satisfy their appetites for greed and privilege. While the net worth of the average American family declined, The Forbes 400 richest American families saw their collective wealth increase by 300%. Did any other Americans see their net worth go up 3 times, 2 times? These stunning gains by the very rich didn't result from the success of hard work or as a reward earned by expanding the nation's prosperity and abundance to the benefit of all. And just yesterday, in the Philadelphia Sunday paper, it said it all. America, what went wrong? In a 9-part series, it asked the question, how the game was rigged against the middle class. It's right there. Right there. See that big line? That's the few. The middle class, their portion is right at the bottom. And the triumph of the forces of special privilege, with its devastating consequences to the entire nation, was engineered. And it was engineered with the complicity of Washington's entrenched politicians, Democrats and Republicans alike. Our democracy has been the object of a hostile takeover, engineered by a confederacy of corruption, careerism, and campaign consultants. And money has been the lubricant greasing the deal. Incredible sums, hundreds of millions of dollars from political action committees, from lobbyists, from wealthy patrons, have flooded into the campaign war chest of Washington's entrenched political elite, Democrats and Republicans alike. Seeking to secure careers of unlimited tenure, these politicians use the cash to fuel monstrous campaigns. And captained by political consultants, these campaigns are designed to crush any challenge to their power. And of course, the forces of greed are rewarded richly for their campaign contributions. Unjust tax breaks are only one form of the acknowledgement. Agreeing to look the other way, these politicians open the door to the plunder of savings and loans and a merger mania which has gutted some of the most respected companies in this country. The insatiable appetite for campaign dollars has turned the government into a stop and shop for every greedy and narrow interest in this country. The quid pro quo couldn't be any more straightforward. The legality of the barter can't mask its inherent corruptness, nor can any degree of dissembling obscure the truth that this bargain has been executed almost without exception to the detriment of the national interest and at the expense of the American people. The cost of this corruption has been staggering. Can it be a coincidence that the flood of rising crime and rampaging drugs in our cities has occurred when the poorest among us have suffered the most drastic reductions in their income? That's no accident. That's the cause. And together, private greed and corrupt power have launched a deadly assault on our common values. To rationalize greed, they champion materialism and self-interest over moral responsibility and community. What's in it for me? To protect their own power, they inject poisons into the body politic. Appeals to fear and selfishness replace calls to hope and sacrifice. Despairing of their own inability to influence the political process, legions of Americans, numbered in the millions, have swelled the ranks of the party of non-voters. How ironic that the spirit of democracy is bursting out all over the world, while in America, democratic choice is rendered illusory, and Thomas Jefferson's consent to the governed is mostly engineered and rarely earned. The crisis which led to our bloody Civil War was triggered by the secession of 1/3 of the states. Today, 1/2 of the people have stopped voting and seceded from the political democracy. It was shortly after the bombardment of Fort Sumner that President Lincoln explained that the central idea pervading the struggle was the necessity of proving that popular government was not an absurdity. Politics is at the heart of democracy, and when the political system loses respect and trust, then the decline of democracy will surely follow. And when democracy declines, the survival of America itself is put in jeopardy. This crisis has been triggered by the collapse of our two-party system. There's only one party. It's the incumbent party. There are, of course, two major political organizations with different names, but at their core, they're the same. They share the same worldview, and they share this and serve the same power of the same private interest, which in return finance the campaigns of both. When there are no substantial differences, there's no choice to be made. And without choice, there's no democracy, and when there's no democracy, there's no freedom. Only a system which entertains us with illusions. As one historian wrote nearly a century ago, when there's no alternative, no threat of defeat, there's no incentive to hold together. In the end, no policy, merely a scramble for special privileges. And the recent congressional pay raise is the most egregious example. Bouncing checks, skipping out on restaurant tabs, and self-serving pay increases are a manifestation of not only the insensity, but the contempt of entrenched politicians in Washington. And when our leaders fail to do their job and betray the people's confidence, then it's our inalienable right to strip them of their power through the great engine of democracy. The leaders of Washington's incumbent party, both Democrats and Republicans, have failed their duty. They've placed their own interest above the national interest. They have allowed themselves to be trapped and in some cases corrupted by the powerful forces of greed. It's time for them to go. And as always, the strength necessary to create the change we need must come from each of us. As it was at the beginning, America hinges on we the people, exercising that sovereignty we claimed in this city of Philadelphia. For 200 years, every generation has earned the title of American by following a simple moral command, that we give our children better than we receive, that we pass on a greater future with more freedom and more opportunity. However, we are now in danger of becoming the first generation to leave our children with a lesser America. In that hall, our forebears chose armed rebellion in defense of the very ideas and principles which are now being betrayed by a corrupted political process. On July 6, 1775, a full year before they declared their independence, the Continental Congress issued a declaration of the causes and necessity of taking up arms. In it they proclaimed, honor and justice and humanity forbid us to tamely surrender that freedom we received from our gallant ancestors and which our innocent posterity have a right to receive from us. We cannot endure the infamy and the guilt of resigning succeeding generations to that wretchedness which inevitably awaits them if we basely entail hereditary bondage upon them. If we continue to allow our children's rightful heritage to be plundered by politicians and greedy interests, if we don't halt the auctioning of our nation's assets to pay our debt, and if we force succeeding generations to pay with their future for the bills our own excesses of mounting up, then we will have betrayed our heritage. The future of America is with our children, and nothing less is our moral test. At stake is everything that Philadelphia means, not only to us, but to the world. I run for president because I believe America is at a crossroads. If we right now are prepared in the spirit of our ancestors to join in common cause, putting principle above party and patriotism above profits, then we can reclaim for ourselves and the children the idea and the promise of America. The hour has rung for us, we the people, to rise up and take back our democracy and our government. This election is simply not about changing elected officials. It's about changing the country and restoring what our forebears brought forth right here 200 years ago. And what's required is not just a candidate, but a candidacy. Not merely a campaign, but a cause. The goal of this candidacy is a government that embodies the hope and the promise of our country and ensures that we never abandon that heritage. I'm here to make solemn a promise that I'm committed to be the catalyst for change. That's my commitment to you. But I can't work change alone. No woman and no man can do that. I need each of you to commit yourselves with me to work change for the common good. You and I must make our voices heard. Both you and I will need to sacrifice in order to achieve higher goals: decency, respect, duty, and honor. The very things that were embraced in this hall 200 years ago. You and I, each in our small way, must stand up to the forces that overwhelm us. You and I must deliver a message to those who run the United States like a private club that we are going to work change. Fundamental change, and now. We must change beyond inwardly turning self-interest to interest in the greater good. We must see one another as brothers and sisters. I'm only one person with faults and flaws, and in my 50 years I've made a lot of mistakes. But I commit to you, to each one of you, that I'll do my utmost to continually change within myself. I don't pretend to know all the right questions, much less have all the right answers. And even if I did, it wouldn't make much difference unless we first decisively break the political deadlock and gridlock that is undermining this country. The campaign I propose must be a dynamic process in which the people are not only heard, but are engaged. Only then can a consensus emerge which reflects the will of the people. Our cause, it's clear. We have to restore commitment to our nation, vitality to the values of our society, vigor to our economy, real democracy to our government, and purpose to our national life. And above all, secure our children's birthright of a greater America than we ourselves inherited. First, and overriding is the priority to restore the people to what is rightfully ours. The power of democracy. In corrupted hands, it's lifeless. In the hands of the people, it possesses an irrepressible magic. The current system promotes tenure over statesmanship. It erects barriers to real participation. Re-election upon re-election of the same incumbents occurs at the expense of new ideas, new energy, and honest representation. That's why I favor limiting the number of terms of those who serve in Congress. We'll never revitalize our market economy until the stranglehold of unrestrained greed is broken and every single American is protected by an economic Bill of Rights. And we must overhaul the fiscal management of our nation. And we know the answer is not to pour more tax dollars down the same bottomless pit. We know we must reform our system of health care to cover every single person. That's every one of us. But as long as the medical industry and the insurance companies are allowed to pour tens of millions of dollars into the campaign pockets of the people in Congress, nothing will get done. Understand that. We must break that stranglehold. We know we must improve the education we give our kids, but that will never happen either unless we break the shackles restraining our teachers and make the same commitment to developing technology for learning that we have for defense. And we know we'll not really be free until the rights of every American are secured, including the rights of women to control the destiny of their own bodies. And we'll never ensure the dignity and security of our senior citizens until their retirement and pension systems are safe from the danger of looting. And we must save our cities and generations of innocent children who are being destroyed by drugs and crime and hopelessness. But it will never happen unless we're willing to risk political defeat over this moral cause. I run for president because I believe this country deserves a real political choice. The election must be about something more than a debate between Democratic insiders and Republican insiders, debating over marginal changes. It's time to choose. The entrenched political establishment and the media believe that our country is on the right track and that its problems can be met with incremental efforts. If you really believe that, please don't vote for me. However, if you search your heart and my message rings true to you, and it's not enough to vote for me. If you share my vision, then join in this candidacy. It's time to choose. Stand with them or join with us. That's the question before all of us. This candidacy rests on a real faith in the people. That's why I won't accept any contribution over $100. If corruption is the problem, then just don't accept it. If political money is the issue, then don't take it. Now, no normal presidential campaign can survive on a $100 contribution. This candidacy will succeed only if millions of Americans claim it as their own and carry it on their own shoulders. The experts say I can't win. They say a campaign based on broad participation and $100 contribution, it isn't serious. It has to be ignored. Others dismiss the effort because they say I don't have the backing of powerful people. My message is too idealistic or maybe extreme. Now, I don't question the right of the Washington establishment to criticize and to scrutinize or form opinions on political viability. It's their privilege to believe that only card-carrying members of the incumbent party have a right to run for election. However, when they assume the power to confer legitimacy and thus determine who will be heard and who won't, then they steal what belongs to the voters, their right to choose. Now, some of you are saying to yourselves, there's not much that one person can do. But I tell you that together, we can prevail. Against their money, we have something stronger, the strength of countless hands. Against their propaganda machines, we have something more powerful, the voice of the people. Against their professional organization, we have something better, the votes. And ultimately, against their authority, we can call forth forces much greater. An idea, when matched to dedication, creates an unconquerable moral energy. My optimism flows from an unshakable belief in the kind of people we Americans are, and the kind of Americans from whom we descend. We carry in our hearts the true country, and that can't be stolen. We follow in the spirit of our ancestors, and that can't be broken.
Well, a very determined and fired up Jerry Brown, ex-two-time governor of California, now becoming the 7th major Democratic candidate for the presidency of the United States, running on an anti-incumbent, anti-elite program for the working people of this country. Joining us again now from Washington, our political analysts, Jack Germond and David Broder. And Jack, I think you had said earlier when we were talking that you felt like Governor Brown was trying to reinvent himself. Is he still not coming off, though, as the liberal reformer that he's always been?
Well, I mean, he was always an intellectually engaging politician. He was a cool politician. His ideas were interesting, even if they did change frequently. What he's trying to be now is a red-faced populist. And if we look back just 2 years ago, he was enthusiastic about being a state Democratic chairman and nuts and bolts. So there's a question of credibility. Now, maybe he hasn't, and his ideas are certainly those that are going to be popular with a lot of people. But I'm not sure he's going to be convincing to Democrats.
I'm wondering about, too, David, after the Thomas Gates hearings, all the polls that were taken, of course, indicated that the American public had reached pretty much an all-time low in their confidence in public officials. His message, I think, to purge the system might quite understandably appeal to a lot of people.
He has identified, I think, Bobbie, the easiest targets in American public life today, the incumbent politicians, and he's chosen his target very well. The question is, can he make himself the vehicle for that movement? And there's an irony here, just in personal terms. Jerry Brown is the product, the second generation of one of California's most popular and distinguished political families. His father, Pat Brown, was the two-term Democratic governor of California, and before that, Attorney General. Jerry Brown got his start in politics because his father had been a successful career politician, and he was himself prepared to be a career politician in California. Secretary of State, governor for 2 terms, then tried for the United States Senate. I think people will know something of that history and will use that as a way to measure how sincere he is in his new stance.
I was going to say, it may be part of that history then that will allow him to run a campaign with only $100 contributions from individuals. This is an issue that is coming up in his campaign. Realistically, how can he do that?
Well, you know that is a takeoff from Governor Lawton Childs of Florida, who did that in his gubernatorial campaign in Florida in 1990. And he found that by limiting the contributions, he attracted a great many contributions. He raised about half as much money as his opponent and enough to get by. The difference was that Lawton Childs and his running mate, Buddy McKay, had a reputation for being reformist, clean politicians. Jerry Brown is running for president. He doesn't have a similar reputation. He has a lot of baggage. I'm not sure the $100 thing works as well with him as it did for Childs.
I'll tell you, Bobbie, when I was listening to Jerry Brown, I was hearing a lot of echoes in my mind of John Anderson in 1980. I think this is a fellow who sees a way to position himself now as somebody who will be a victim of the Democratic Party presidential nomination process, and then can turn around and say, the big guys beat me up inside that party system. I'm going outside the party system now. I'm going to call on you, and we will run an independent campaign. My bet is that we will see Jerry Brown running as an independent candidate in the fall of 1992.
I was going to ask you that. It would seem to me to be more politically astute that he run as an independent with this particular platform.
Well, it's not going to be easy for him when he goes into primaries. For example, in New Hampshire, there are more people that vote in the New Hampshire primary than just party regulars and activists. But nonetheless, you have to have some credibility within the party, and he's not going to have a great deal of that, I don't think.
Is his personal past, is that going to come back to haunt him?
You mean Linda Ron? Are we talking about Linda Ronstadt?
I think that's part of it, but I mean, he's always had kind of a, you know, when he was governor of California, we used to call him Governor Moonbeam. He's been into Zen Buddhism and Mother Teresa. In fact, I think a catchline he was using was that he wanted to be the Mother Teresa of politics and business.
Well, you can't gainsay that. I mean, this all happened. And the reason for this is that he was so intellectually, imaginative. He had new ideas all the time. He was attracted by different ideas. He changed his mind about things a lot of times, things that he concentrated about. And he sort of deserved that reputation. And maybe it's gone now, but I doubt it.
A more critical way of describing Jerry Brown's intellectual history is that he has caught every wave as it has moved through the American intelligentsia. He was for space exploration when space was hot. He was for protecting the environment when environmentalism was the main cause. He was for small is beautiful when minimalism was the cause. Now he has become the anti-politician.
Okay, bottom line then, how does he stack up to the other 6 candidates, and will he be a factor?
My guess is that I think he is correct in saying that he is not in the first tier right now. I mean, Brown admits that himself. I mean, I think the leading candidates are Senator Harkin, Senator Kerry, and Governor Clinton. I suspect that Brown is sort of somewhere in the second tier, and I would take a lot to convince me that he's going to move beyond that.
I agree that he's not likely to be a major player in the Democratic primaries, but watch for Jerry Brown again in the fall of '92.
And the two of you will be with us through the entire political process and into the fall of '92 and beyond. We thank you so much for joining us again today.
Bye-bye.
NewsHour will continue right after this.
This is CNN Breaking News.
I put off going to the doctor. But this burning stomach kept waking me up at night. Finally, I just went. I can imagine how relieved I was when my doctor said, Mylanta. He said I had heartburn. And heartburn like mine needed a strong medicine.
Mylanta is strong medicine, strongly recommended. In fact, Mylanta is the antacid doctors recommend most.
My doctor said Mylanta.
Now available in cherry and cool mint cream flavors.
Here's today's lesson in the School of Fish.
At Long John Silver's,
you're gonna get your wish. Go for our batter dip fish and chicken combo. Just $1.99.
Go fish! Long John Silver's, yeah.
Do yourself proud, make you look beautiful, do it for yourself with Minwax and Wood.
Get beautiful color with Minwax Wood Finish and lasting protection with Minwax Polyurethane.
So do yourself proud with Minwax and Wood.
On CNN Today, staying afloat when your home is on the water. Jeannie Most visits Manhattan's boat people on The World Today. And on Moneyline, minorities in business climbing the ladder of success. All today on CNN.
Checking other top stories today, there is no sign yet of the U.S. hostage. Pro-Iranian kidnappers have promised to free today. A photo of Jesse Turner was enclosed in a statement released early today in Lebanon by the Islamic Jihad. The Syrian foreign minister is quoted as saying his government expects Turner to be freed within a few hours. Officials in Oakland confirmed 10 people have died in a raging fire that swept through neighborhoods, and they expect the toll to rise when search teams converge on a block after block of gutted homes. The massive brush fire that spread to residential areas continues to rage out of control. There is some indication that it may be contained at this hour, though diminishing winds are helping in the fight. Some 500 homes and a 250-unit apartment complex are confirmed destroyed. The fast-moving fire forced dwellers in Oakland Hills to flee their homes in panic, and evacuations have been carried out in parts of Berkeley as well. Well, Flip Spiceland is ready to join us now to tell us that there may be some relief from Mother Nature this afternoon in those dying winds and perhaps some rain. Flip?
Perhaps. That's the big word here. Certainly the wind has died down. Oakland reporting calm winds now, and San Francisco reporting wind speeds of less than 10 miles an hour. The reason there may be some rain is because of this approaching frontal system. That's also part of the reason it was so windy yesterday. You have the high here and the low here, but as this front approaches, as it moves on through, we'll get an onshore breeze. Even if it doesn't rain, that will increase humidity. Humidity is going up a little bit already, and it'll bring in some cloudiness, maybe, although San Francisco is forecasting cloudy skies tomorrow. There is certainly the threat of rain. There's a better chance of rain late in the week, but this frontal system is the difference. The energy from this storm is going to stay way to the north, way up in here. We'll see some rain and some snow possibly in the higher elevations in Washington and Oregon, and the chance perhaps of some rain in the Bay Area tomorrow, a better chance later in the week as another storm system packed up behind this one will come rolling on in. For much of the nation today, it is dry, very dry. We only have a bit of rain up here associated with this storm that we've been talking about. A bit of rain here in the Great Lakes area, moving out of the Great Lakes by tonight will be in northern New England. And all this cloudiness that you see here in the south is just that, cloudiness, producing no rainfall at all. There is a little bit of rainfall down here in South Florida, but that's due to this stalled stationary frontal system. Let's take a look at the CNN color radar, talk a little bit more about the rain. Here you can see that area of rainfall in the Great Lakes area moving to the east rather quickly. Here are the scattered showers down here around Florida. Not much of it on shore, although the Keys picking up a little bit of rain. A couple of showers along the Texas Gulf Coast too, and the rainfall here in the northwest. The higher elevations of the Cascades, there could even be some snowfall today. It is more likely we would see some snowfall there tomorrow. On to our forecast weather map far later in the day. We'll get to the west in just one moment, but first of all those stalled out frontal systems down here across Florida, South Florida, North Florida, by tonight will degenerate into nothing more than a low-pressure trough. Still, there will be enough disturbance in the atmosphere and certainly abundant moisture that there could be some showers scattered about in the Sunshine State. Here's the low-pressure center rolling out of the Great Lakes area, bring some rain and maybe even some snowfall overnight to northern Maine. And this is the storm we're talking about that maybe by tomorrow this tail here will swing down through northern California and bring them some much-needed rainfall. Right now, take a look at specific forecasts for cities around the nation for the remainder of the day. More of NewsHour right after this.
This weather update is brought to you by Florida, the perfect place from coast to coast to coast.
I always dream in color, but I wasn't asleep. I was dancing with the dancers to nature's timeless rhythms, soaking in the sun, building castles in the air. From the edge of the ocean, I followed my instincts to a town lost in time, a paradise under the sea, a place where the endings are always happy. From coast to coast to coast, Florida.
I've had my share of sore throats. I just went to the doc with a doozy. Know what he suggested for fastest relief? Chloroseptic. Doc was right. I could actually feel the pain go away in seconds.
More doctors recommend Chloroseptic spray for fastest relief because Chloroseptic's powerful medicine penetrates nerve endings on contact.
I can't prevent a sore throat from ever coming back, but when it does, I don't have to suffer.
For fastest relief, doctors say Chloroseptic spray.
I crave snacks, but sometimes those calories have to be tabled. No problem. I've got Wrigley's Spearmint Gum. The great taste I love and only 10 little calories. Instead of munching, I enjoy pure chewing satisfaction.
Campbell's heard your healthy request.
Low cholesterol.
Less salt.
But lots of taste.
Here's our answer. New Campbell's Healthy Request ready-to-serve soups. All the great taste you want without some things you don't. New Campbell's Healthy Request. And healthy.
What's Larry King got on TNT?
Beautiful women. Gossip. Poetry, too.
Jerry Lewis, Debbie Reynolds, Audrey Hepburn. 3 Hollywood legends open up to the King of Talk. The Larry King TNT Extra. Tonight at 8.
With the U.S. economy in a slump, starting your own business can be difficult, but there is a well-established way to cut the risk. It's called franchising, and it's the fastest-growing segment of the retail industry. CNN's Brian Jenkins has more from New York.
Dave Melton's parents nearly flipped 9 years ago when they found out their son, the college graduate, was going to work for Domino's Pizza at $4 an hour. But hustle and enthusiasm paid off. And 2 years ago, Melton was able to open the first of his 2 Domino's franchises in Manhattan. In a lukewarm economy, Melton's business is hot, thanks in great measure, he says, to the company's reputation.
Well, there's no question, the national name and the national advertising has been a tremendous help.
Government figures show that while 65% of all small businesses in the United States fold within 5 years, over the past 2 decades, only 5% of franchises have gone under.
Typically, the franchise system has worked out all the bugs, so you don't have to go through the learning process. You'll be taught how to hire people, how to train people. You'll be trained all the time by field personnel and consultants.
Cheryl Jameson started working in a Subway sandwich franchise during college, then bought her own franchise in College Park, Georgia, 5 years ago.
I'm very happy with it. And financially, I'm still happy with the support that I get. It's still a good business. If I had it to do all over again, I would.
And if she had to show someone the way to become his or her own boss, franchising is clearly the route she would recommend. But experienced franchisees also warn prospective owners not to expect money to come rolling in the front door just because there's a big organization behind them. Stan Sturenberg has owned an Athlete's Foot shoe franchise for 15 years and still puts in up to 80 hours a week.
Ultimately, the business will succeed or fail mostly according to the quality of your work.
So aspiring franchisees should carefully analyze their goals, say experts on small business, and then shop around before choosing a chain.
Be careful. Read the fine print. Get a good lawyer. Be sure that you're negotiating from a position of strength.
Even with a solid start and strong backing, experts admit no business franchise is foolproof. But given the odds against succeeding as a lone wolf, joining a well-known pack offers the best chance of survival. Brian Jenkins, CNN, New York.
And that is NewsHour. I'm Bobbie Battista. Dr. Sonia Friedman is in New York now with a look at what's ahead on Sonia Live.
Thank you, Bobbie. Is feminism dying of natural causes, or is there a conspiracy to kill it? We're going to meet a woman who says that there's a lot of misinformation out there about being a Ms. That's coming up next on Sonia Live.
Coming up, Sonia Live, followed by Newsday here on CNN.
25 million Americans have seen ghosts. 40 million Americans have made contact with the dead. 62 million Americans have had a telepathic experience. 25 million Americans say they have spoken to the devil. Now, their stories will be told. Beyond reality. There are millions of reasons to watch. Saturday at 10:30, 9:30 Central on USA.
Jane, I'd like you to meet Peter. Peter makes movies.
Features.
We were just talking about this movie that HBO made. It's so intense. Did you make that movie?
No, I didn't.
Oh, are you talking about that HBO movie?
Yeah, really gutsy, huh?
Did you make that?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
It was edgy. No, I didn't make it.
Excuse me. I heard you make movies for HBO?
Yes, I do.
Powerful, provocative, original movies only on HBO.
Weekdays on TBS, it's Things That Make You Go.
Whoa. Things that make you go.
Dynamite! Things That Make You Go.
Nip it in the bud.
Things that make you go.
Love you.
And even things that make you go.
I'm coming to join you, honey.
Things that make you go, ha! Weekdays beginning at 4:35 Eastern on TBS. Late night. To you, it's just a TV show. To us,